Welcome back to Under Baobab Skies. Tonight, we travel to a time when the Sahara was greener and the mighty Niger River was a ribbon of life across the golden sands. We meet a Songhai warrior, a man whose life is measured by the glint of swords and the roar of the river. His name echoes with the strength of his spirit, but his story is a secret waiting to be uncovered. Long before European maps divided Africa, the Songhai Empire stretched from the Atlantic coast to the edge of the Sahara. It was a realm where Islam blended with ancient beliefs, where bustling cities traded with distant lands, and where the power of the king was rivaled only by the might of the Niger. And it was here, along the river's edge, that our warrior found his calling. His early years were spent in a small Songhai village, a place where life revolved around the rhythms of the river. When the rains swelled its waters, the land became a mirror, reflecting the playful smiles of the sky. And when the dry season arrived, the river gave way to the dusty road leading to far-off Tombush. Our hero would sit for hours watching the world go by. The riverboats laden with goods, the merchants with their tales of distant lands, and the griots with their instruments, singing of kings and empires. And then he began to train, to learn the ways of the warrior. He stood patiently as his father adjusted his first shield, a circular wall of wood and leather that would protect him in the battles to come. He learned to wield spears as light as reeds and swords as heavy as the sky at noon. His muscles grew hard as ironwood, his steps sure and silent as the desert wind. But a warrior's life is not all battles and victories. There are long marches, endless drills and nights around the campfire, listening to the whispers of the wind. Our warrior felt the pull of these duties, the need for order and strength. And he yearned for the day when he could serve his empire, ride with the regiments, and let his bravery be known across the land. His wish came sooner than he expected. One evening, a messenger arrived in the village, bearing an urgent message from the king. A neighboring tribe had crossed the river, raiding on Songhai soil. The call to arms sounded, and soon men from all over the empire gathered in the main square, their faces grim, their weapons gleaming. Among them, our hero stood tall, his heart pounding like a war drum. He had been chosen for his bravery and skill, and now he was ready to prove himself. The journey to the battlefield was long and fraught with challenges. They marched for weeks, following the course of the river, their bodies weary, their spirits resolute. When the enemy was finally spotted, the Songhai warriors prepared for battle. Our hero gripped his spear tightly, his heart pounding in his chest. The clash of arms echoed across the plain. The dust rose in thick clouds, and the air filled with shouts and the cries of the fallen. The Songhai warriors fought with the ferocity of lions, their movements swift and precise, their defense impenetrable. And our hero, standing in the thick of the fight, proved himself worthy of his training. His courage unwavering, his determination unbreakable. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the battle came to an end. The enemy had been defeated, their forces scattered. The Songhai warriors stood victorious, their chests heaving, their eyes shining with the triumph. In the days that followed, the cheers of victory echoed across the empire, celebrating the bravery and skill of its warriors. And our hero, once a young boy dreaming of honor, now stood tall, his deeds sung by the griots, his name whispered with respect and admiration. But the life of a warrior is never truly peaceful, for even in victory there is always the promise of another battle, another challenge, another chance to prove oneself. And so he stood ready, ever vigilant, ever brave, a Songhai warrior, a protector of his people, a servant of his empire, forever bound to the rhythm of the drums and the whisper of the wind. Now close your eyes, my friends, and imagine the warmth of a fire under the vast African night sky. Feel the soft glow of starlight and listen to the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. Here, beneath the sheltering branches of the baobab tree, the great storyteller is about to begin his tale. Are you ready to step into a world where the past comes alive? You're listening to Under Baobab Skies, and the story begins now. By the end, you'll understand the relentless hardships of daily life as a Songhai warrior, the heat, hunger, isolation, and discipline that shaped these men long before they saw the battlefield. Before we jump into the hardships of being a Songhai warrior, please subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Also, feel free to leave your suggestions for future videos down below. And finally, if you're interested in learning about other empires throughout history, make sure to check out our other videos. Now let's go back to Songhai. Now the sun beats down on the parade ground. It is unbearably hot. From dawn till dusk, the air shimmers with heat haze over the flat plains of the empire. Squads of Songhai warriors drill in the open, performing maneuvers designed to impress the most jaded general. Theirs is an age-old dance of survival and conquest, played out against the backdrop of one of the largest empires in West African history. Spears are polished to mirror-like perfection, their bronze points flashing dangerously in the sunlight. Shields are checked for cracks, repaired and varnished. Horses are groomed, saddled, and ready to thunder across the plains. The river breeze brings little relief from the oppressive heat. Here, on the edge of the great Niger River, the heart of the Songhai Empire, the temperature seems to have no bounds. It soaks into the marrow of the bones, saps the strongest man's will, turning even the cleanest streams into shimmering mirages on the horizon. Each movement is purposeful, each hour measured. Mistakes are noted, sometimes punished. Failure to maintain equipment can mean the difference between a swift charge and a broken defense. So the men work in silence, their movements efficient, their eyes sharp, always watching, always learning. Even the youngest recruit knows the danger of a poorly maintained spear or a cracked shield. They also know the value of a well-aimed throw or a perfectly timed block. It's a lesson learned early and often in this unforgiving land. Long marches are routine, sometimes lasting days, even weeks. Warriors traverse the undulating, dusty plains of the empire, navigating the flooded banks of the Niger during the rainy season. When the rains come, they turn the parched earth into a treacherous maze of mud and water. But the Songhai warriors press on, their bodies slick with sweat and mud, their spirits unbroken. They scale rocky outcrops where leopards prowl, their sure-footedness tested by the uneven terrain. All the while, they carry the weight of their armor, weapons, and supplies, their steps measured, their endurance pushed to its limits. Blisters form on their feet, sunburn paints their skin a deep bronze, and exhaustion gnaws at their bones. There is little rest for the wicked, and even less for the warriors of the Songhai Empire. For they are not just soldiers, they are the backbone of an empire, tasked with maintaining its vast borders, quelling rebellions, and expanding its territories. Every step forward is a testament to their grit, their determination to prevail in the face of the elements. The body is pushed to its limits, often without sufficient rest. For campaigns can stretch for weeks or even months, taking them far from the comforts of home. When the call to adventure echoes across the plains, a Songhai warrior must drop everything and answer. Farmers lay down their tools, traders abandon their wares, and young men leave their families behind. They join their fellows at the parade ground, their faces etched with a mixture of apprehension and excitement. There is no time for second thoughts, no room for fear. They are the bulwarks of society, the shields that protect the Songhai way of life. And they will not falter. Food is simple and scarce. At best, sorghum porridge, dried fish, and millet, quickly eaten before resuming long drills. At worst, rations dwindled to a handful of berries or a meager portion of dried meat. Hunger pangs are a constant companion, a reminder of the harsh realities of their existence. Sometimes they are lucky enough to forage for wild onions or greens, adding a touch of variety to their monotonous diet. Water, drawn from rivers or wells, may be tainted or brackish, leaving the soldiers vulnerable to sickness. This scarcity of resources is not just a test of endurance, it is a crucible that forges their spirit, turning them into instruments of the Empire, honed and sharpened to do its bidding. Sleep is taken wherever it can be found, under the shade of baobab trees, atop the riverbanks, or in hastily constructed camps. Comfort is a luxury they cannot afford. Instead, they seek refuge in numbers, sharing stories and jokes to lift their spirits. The camaraderie that forms in these moments of respite becomes a lifeline, pulling them through the darkest days. The star-studded nights are their only ceiling, the crackling fires their only source of warmth and light. In the flickering shadows, their faces etched with fatigue, they find solace in the company of their brothers in arms. The vast expanse of the Empire is their domain. They are the silent guardians, the watchful protectors. The dangers of their calling are many, from the harsh terrain to the diseases that stalk their path. But none are as daunting as the battles that occasionally erupt, shattering the tranquility of their existence. When the drums of war beat, the atmosphere shifts, the carefree laughter fades, replaced by the somber clink of armor. The casual banter gives way to focused strategizing. The warriors prepare not just their weapons, but their hearts and minds for what lies ahead. They gather in solemn groups, their voices hushed, their gazes unwavering. There is no room for hesitation, no time for regret. They are the vanguard of the Empire, and duty calls. As the first rays of sunlight touch the horizon, they mount their horses, their movements precise and efficient. The animals snort, pawing the ground, eager to be unleashed. The warriors settle into their saddles, their bodies in tune with their mounts. The vast plains stretch before them, a canvas upon which their bravery will be painted in blood and fire. With a flick of reins and a shout to their comrades, they charge forward, becoming a blur of motion and steel. The clash of arms resonates across the plains, a symphony of violence accompanied by the cries of men and the thunder of hooves. It is a dance of death, a ballet of bloodshed. Their movements are a testament to years of training, their strategies honed to perfection. Theirs is a world of smoke and fury, of sweat and sacrifice. Each victory is hard won, each defeat a bitter pill. But they endure, their spirits unbroken. For they are the Songhai warriors, and their legend is written in the very soil of the Empire. Every inch of this empire bears witness to their sacrifices. Along the Niger River, their boats, laden with goods and men, navigate the currents, ensuring the flow of trade. Farther afield, scouts on horseback race across the plains, their keen eyes scanning the horizon for signs of trouble. Closer still, farmers armed with sickles defend their crops from hungry predators, both human and animal. In every corner of the Songhai realm, the warriors' presence is felt, their dedication to the Empire unwavering. They stand as sentinels against the encroaching darkness, safeguarding the prosperity and peace of their people. Yet, amidst this vast dominion, there are those who seek to disrupt the harmony. Rebellious chiefs nurse grudges, neighboring tribes eye the Empire's riches, and ambitious warlords plot their own aggrandizement. For the Songhai warriors, this is more than a call to arms. It is a test of their mettle, a challenge to their skills. When the call to arms echoes across the empire, they drop their tools or abandon their patrols, answering the summons with the speed and precision that marks their calling. They gather at strategic points, their numbers swelling, their resolve hardening. As they await their orders, the atmosphere crackles with anticipation. The faintest tremor of fear, a fleeting shadow of doubt, is cast aside. What follows is a display of martial prowess that has become the hallmark of the Songhai name. Discipline is the very bedrock of the Songhai warriors' existence. From the moment they rise with the sun till they rest beneath the stars, every action is dictated by orders from their commanders. Even the briefest moment of hesitation, the slightest lapse in concentration, can spell disaster. Theirs is a world where mistakes are not tolerated, where failure is synonymous with death. It is a harsh reality, but one that forges an unbreakable bond of obedience and respect among the ranks. The warrior's life is a tapestry woven with threads of duty, honor, and sacrifice. At every turn, they are reminded of the fragility of life, the precarious balance between victory and defeat. Theirs is a calling, a commitment to the Songhai Empire that supersedes all else. They are not merely soldiers, they are the embodiment of the Empire's might, its defense against the encroaching shadows. And so they stand, these warriors of the Songhai Empire, on the precipice of glory and peril. With each passing day, they write their names in the annals of history, their deeds echoing across the plains of West Africa. The life of a soldier in the Songhai Empire's army is a relentless cycle of movement and vigilance. They are the backbone of the Empire's power, tasked with defending its vast borders and pushing into the unknown to expand its reach. But what does life on campaign look like? What are the daily routines, challenges, and sacrifices these warriors face? When the army set out from Gao or Timbuktu, the warriors' routine shifted from training to survival. The day began before the sun crested the horizon, with men rising from mats or rough bedding, stretching stiff muscles and preparing weapons for the march ahead. Each warrior carried essentials: spear, shield, sometimes a short sword, a water gourd, and a small bundle of food. The weight was constant, yet every piece necessary, for without it, the march could become fatal. The Songhai warriors, part of one of West Africa's most formidable armies, are renowned for their discipline and endurance. Their strength is tested daily as they defend the vast reaches of the empire from encroaching rivals. Their lives are a tapestry woven with threads of courage, resilience, and unwavering loyalty to the crown. As the sky begins to lighten, the soldiers of the Songhai Empire stir to life. Sleep, when it comes, is fitful, haunted by the echoes of battle and the anxieties of the road. Now, with the promise of dawn, they prepare to face another day of arduous marches and potential confrontations. They move with a practiced efficiency born of countless similar mornings. Each man attends to his personal needs, the communal space filled with the routine choreography of ablutions and armors. Once ready, they assemble before their officers, a sea of faces weathered by the sun and etched with the stories of past campaigns. Amongst them stands the Askir, the leader of the Songhai forces, his presence commanding respect and obedience. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, reflects the weight of his responsibility, the defense and expansion of the empire's borders. He offers a prayer, invoking the blessings of Allah and the ancestors for guidance and protection on the journey ahead. With the spiritual duty discharged, the soldiers break into their various units. Cavalrymen readying their mounts, archers checking their bows, each group making ready for the rigors of the road. The bugle sounds, a clarion call that echoes across the landscape, announcing the departure of the great Songhai army. It's a call to action, a summons to duty. The march itself was grueling. Dust swirled around boots and bare feet. Heat radiated off the cracked earth. The soldiers walk in formation, disciplined yet weary, their minds focused both on survival and the commands of their leaders. Along the dusty trail, their steps fall into a rhythmic cadence, a testament to the countless miles they've covered in the service of the Empire. Hours melt into one another, marked only by the relentless sun and the occasional landmark. The monotony is broken only by the occasional stream, providing a precious respite for both men and animals. Here, the warriors quench their thirst and perhaps wash the grime of days gone by from their bodies. For a moment, they are not soldiers on a campaign, but men finding solace in the simple act of sharing water. As the column moves on, the dust cloud following like a loyal shade, the rhythm of the march continues. The sun climbs higher, beating down with unrelenting intensity. The soldiers press on, their bodies glistening with sweat, their resolve hardening with each step. Rest stops are brief, a sip of water, a bite of millet porridge, a moment to wipe sweat from brows before the next stretch. Animals, horses or camels are tended with care, for the condition of mounts often determines the speed and success of the campaign. A fallen comrade receives aid, a reminder that their strength lies not just in numbers, but in their collective endurance and care for one another. A seasoned warrior, grizzled and scarred, tends to his horse, whispering words of encouragement as he cleans a wound. Theirs is a silent understanding forged in the fires of countless campaigns, a bond that transcends words. The horse, snorting and pawing the ground, is more than a mount. He's a partner, a lifeline on the unforgiving roads. As the column resumes its trek, the sun beginning its slow descent, the thoughts of the soldiers turned to the evening fires, to the camaraderie and the meager comforts that await them at day's end. The march concludes with the familiar ritual of preparation. Fires are lit, meals cooked quickly over open flames, and watchers assigned. Even under the stars, vigilance never fully ceases. Scouts patrol the perimeter, listening for the subtle rustle of waterfowl or the distant cry of predators. Sleep is always shallow, dreams tinged with the day's exertions and the anticipation of tomorrow's march. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars, imagining the quiet camaraderie among soldiers sharing stories, tending wounds, or mending torn shields under the faint glow of lanterns. Perhaps a young recruit listens, wide-eyed, to tales of valor and daring feats from those who've seen years of campaigning. Laughter mingles with the crackle of the fire, momentarily chasing away the loneliness that lingers at the edge of their lives. Illness and injury are constant threats. Cuts from weapons or thorny plants, fevers from contaminated water, or fatigue-induced accidents could incapacitate a man. Even minor ailments slow the formation, and commanders have to make difficult decisions. Leave the ill behind, assign extra guards, or push forward despite the risk. The harsh terrain of the Sahel and Niger plains is unforgiving, testing both body and spirit daily. Around the flickering firelight, the warriors share stories and laughter, finding solace in the camaraderie that sustains them on these long marches. But as night deepens and the stars begin their silent vigil, the soldiers retire to their makeshift shelters, each man seeking the briefest respite from the unending journey. The relentless march continues, day after day, week after week. Each morning, the soldiers wake to the routine that has become their life. With the rising sun, they tend to their duties, preparing themselves and their equipment for the road ahead. Theirs is a life dictated by the ceaseless demands of the campaign. a life on the edge of the known world where danger lurks around every bend and the whisper of the wind carries tales of both hardship and glory. Through it all, the Songhai warriors stand resolute, their spirits unbroken, their loyalty steadfast. They are the bulwarks of the empire, holding the line against the encroaching darkness, ensuring that the light of the Songhai sun continues to shine. As the sun dips low each evening, warriors reflect on the distance traveled, the miles yet to cover, and the uncertain battles ahead. The eldest, with a wisdom born of countless campaigns, tells stories of past victories, reminding the young of their heritage and their purpose. Each scar he bears is a testament to the courage and resilience that defines a Songhai warrior. Amidst the weariness, there are moments of grace. A shared meal, a song in the evening, the comforting presence of comrades who have become more than brothers in arms. They are family, bound together by the invisible threads of shared experience and mutual respect. Life on campaign demands sacrifice, resilience, and constant adaptation. Every day is a lesson in endurance, testing not just their physical limits, but their resolve and their faith in one another. And so they persevere, these warriors of the Songhai, their spirits soaring with the eagles, their feet firmly planted on the ground, ready to face whatever challenges may come. Every evening, as the sky blazes with hues of burnt umber and crimson, the warriors gather close around their dying fires. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on their weather-beaten faces, each line and wrinkle telling a story of courage and endurance. In the fading light, they are not just soldiers, they are storytellers, sharing tales of valor and hardship, of battles won and losses endured. The youngest listen, their eyes shining with admiration, and perhaps a touch of awe. As the night deepens and the stars begin their silent vigil, the warriors settle down, their bodies aching with the weariness of the day. Sleep comes fitfully, punctuated by the occasional startle and the murmur of dreams that drift between the realms of reality and memory. And as the endless march continues, so too does the saga of the Songhai warriors, a saga of bravery, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of those who dare to defend the light in the face of encroaching darkness. The battlefield awaited with both promise and peril. For a Songhai warrior, months of training and long marches culminated in moments that demanded every ounce of skill, courage, and endurance. Spears clashed, arrows hissed, and shields banged against the heat-hardened earth. Victory was never guaranteed. Even the strongest soldier could falter under the weight of fatigue or the chaos of combat. It is the year 1591, and the Askia dynasty's armies are on the march. Across the vast plains of the Songhai Empire, the air crackled with anticipation as warriors prepared to face their destiny ahead. But the path to glory was fraught with challenges that tested not only their martial prowess, but also their stamina and mental fortitude. The battlefield was a crucible where only the most resilient would truly triumph. The hours leading up to the confrontation were filled with a strange mixture of anticipation and tranquility. It was a deceptive calm before the coming storm. In this serene interlude, the warriors meticulously sharpened their weapons, ensuring each blade glistened like a mirror. They checked their armor, patching any holes and reinforcing joints to withstand the coming blows. Every piece of equipment was a testament to their dedication, reflecting the importance of preparedness in their ethos. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its harsh glare over the landscape, the warriors engaged in a final round of practice. They sparred with one another, testing their reflexes and strategies, their movements a blur of calculated precision. Non-verbal communication was key, and years of shared experience had forged a level of understanding among them that transcended words. Captains reviewed battle plans, their voices low and intense, making sure every man knew his position and responsibilities. Mistakes were not an option. This was a well-oiled machine of discipline and strategy. And then came the moment of truth when the Songhai warriors took their positions, forming an unbroken line of defense against the approaching forces. Here they stood, a wall of humanity braced against the onslaught of fate. Their spears were poised like the sharp intakes of breath, ready to unleash a storm of their own. As the enemy came into view, the tension on the battlefield thickened, as palpable as the dust cloud rising in the distance. The warriors' faces, etched with determination, reflected the seriousness of the moment. This was more than just a battle. It was a test of their mettle, a trial by combat that would push them to the very limits of their endurance. When the first arrow pierced the air, the tranquility of preparation was shattered. The Songhai warriors responded with a controlled ferocity, their movements a symphony of strategy and skill. Spears thrust out, finding their marks with deadly accuracy, sending the enemy reeling. Shields held firm, deflecting incoming projectiles, creating a barrier between the warriors and the chaos of the fray. In the close quarters combat, swords flashed, exchanging blows that rang with the clink of steel on steel. Each warrior fought with the intensity born of discipline and purpose, their movements economical yet effective. But it wasn't just about physical prowess. It was also a battle of attrition, a test of endurance that sapped at their energy reserves. Fatigue was a relentless adversary, its effects creeping in with the passage of time. Long marches across rugged terrain had taken their toll. Sleep was a luxury in short supply, and the cumulative effect of exhaustion was a heavy weight on their shoulders. Yet they pressed on, their bodies aching, their muscles screaming in protest. Then there were the elements to contend with. The scorching sun beating down from above, relentless and unforgiving. It was a furnace in the sky, baking the earth and sapping the strength from the warriors. The heat shimmered on the horizon, blurring the line between earth and sky. And all the while, the burning ball of fire continued its slow, relentless march across the heavens. And yet, amidst this crucible of fatigue and heat, the Songhai warriors stood firm. They drank from their water skins, the liquid a precious commodity that refreshed and revived. Sustenance was also important. Though rations were often scarce, the warriors ate what little they had, finding in the simple act of consuming a bit of food a moment of respite. Every bite was a burst of energy, a small victory over hunger. As the battle raged on, the Songhai warriors were confronted with another silent killer. Thirst. The parched earth offered no relief, and the lack of water was a constant reminder of the unforgiving environment they inhabited. Each gulp of water was a precious commodity, a sip of life in the vast desert of their ordeal. Amidst the dust, heat, and fatigue, the warriors exhibited remarkable endurance. They were honed by months of rigorous training, their bodies conditioned to withstand the harshest conditions. It wasn't just their physical strength that impressed. It was also their mental fortitude, their ability to focus amidst the chaos of battle. They saw comrades fall, their bodies succumbing to the relentless assault of exhaustion, heat, or injury. Yet they didn't falter. Instead, they pressed on, honoring their fallen brothers by continuing the fight. Such was the caliber of these Songhai warriors. They fought not just for land or gold, but for the ideals of their empire, for the memory of their ancestors, and for the hope of a better future. They were more than just soldiers. They were the backbone of an empire, the embodiment of discipline and resilience. And as long as they held firm, so did the hopes of their people. Their leaders played a crucial role in maintaining order and control. Captains and generals moved swiftly through the ranks, issuing commands that kept the army cohesive and effective. Discipline was paramount, and those who broke ranks risked not only their own safety, but the integrity of the entire formation. Authority was earned through merit, lineage, and proven bravery, and was respected implicitly. The battlefield was a tapestry of noise and motion. The clash of arms echoed across the landscape, punctuated by the shouts of warriors and the cries of the fallen. Amidst this cacophony, the Songhai warriors maintained a sense of order, their actions synchronized and purposeful. It was a testament to their training, their ability to channel the chaos of battle into a disciplined response. For the Songhai warriors, battle was more than just a physical contest. It was a test of character, a trial by fire that forged their spirits. With each passing hour, they dug deeper into their reserves of strength, both physical and mental. Theirs was a performance of grit, determination, and an unbreakable bond of brotherhood. And so, as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the battlefield, the Songhai warriors stood tall, their numbers thinned, but their resolve unbroken. They had weathered the storm, emerging stronger and more unified than ever before. It was a sight to behold, a tribute to their resilience, and a symbol of the indomitable spirit that defined the Songhai Empire. In the heart of the fire, surrounded by the murmur of the night, our valiant warriors tend to their wounds. The flames danced, casting flickering shadows on their determined faces as they cleaned and bandaged cuts and bruises. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and herbs, a strange but comforting aroma in the stillness of the night. Nearby, the Niger River flowed ceaselessly, its sound a gentle lullaby compared to the day's clamor. This was a brief respite, a stolen moment of peace in the midst of a chaotic existence. Here, fatigue was not just a physical burden, but an emotional and psychological toll as well. Injuries, both big and small, were the badges of their courage. Shallow cuts and grievous wounds alike received immediate attention. Fellow soldiers or designated medics worked with swift efficiency, years of experience guiding their hands. The art of healing was not merely about patching up wounds. It was about preserving lives. Even in the quiet of the night, the harsh terrain they traversed remained a constant threat. Rocky outcrops, swollen rivers, and thick foliage, features that provided cover during the day, transformed into hazards in the dark. The warriors' senses were heightened, attuned to the rustle of leaves or the snapping of a twig. Every step was cautious, every movement deliberate. Under the soft glow of the campfire, the warriors rested, sharing stories of past battles or quiet moments of contemplation. Some slept fitfully, always ready to rise at a moment's notice. Fatigue was a familiar companion, a constant shadow that followed them into their camps. It settled on their shoulders like a heavy cloak, weighing them down with its oppressive presence. Yet, despite the weariness that clung to them, the warriors pressed on. Their duty, their honor, and the very survival of their comrades spurred them forward. For them, rest was not an indulgence, but a necessity. To be strong in the face of fatigue, to push through the aching limbs and the heavy eyelids, that was the essence of their training. That was the mark of a true Songhai warrior. And so, as the fire crackled softly and the stars twinkled above, the weary warriors found solace in their brotherhood, drawing strength from one another to face the dawn and the battles that lay ahead. The drums of war beat a steady rhythm across the vast realm of Songhai, echoing the ambition of its emperor, Askia Muhammad. Yet, amidst the clash of steel and thunder of hooves, a quiet revolution unfolded. For Askia understood that true power lay not just in brute force, but in the invisible strength of systems, strategies, and standards. He set about transforming the Songhai army from a collection of fierce warriors into one of Africa's most formidable forces. His reign, which began in the late 15th century, was a delicate balancing act. Songhai was a realm brimming with opportunity. Trade along the Niger River flourished. Islam spread steadily, and neighboring powers watched keenly. But this prosperity and growth came with challenges. To maintain stability and fend off rivals, Askia knew his army could not remain a loose band of skilled men, answering only to tribal affiliations or personal loyalties. It needed structure, a defined hierarchy, and a foundation of consistent training. As the leader of Songhai, Askia Muhammad inherited a powerful domain nestled in the western Sudan. A land of great wealth and potential, rich in gold, salt, and the burgeoning trade of enslaved people. The mighty Niger River snaked through it, connecting distant markets and acting as both a lifeline and a pathway to further expansion. Yet this very prosperity was a double-edged sword. While trade thrived, so did the ambitions of rival kingdoms, each eyeing Songhai's growing influence with covetous gazes. In the heart of this volatile landscape sat Askia Muhammad, a ruler poised to leave an indelible mark on history. His ascent to the throne was a testament to his lineage and his vision. But it also placed upon him the weighty responsibility of maintaining peace and progress in a region teetering on the brink of both greatness and turmoil. The echoes of war drums reverberated across the plains of Songhai, but within the bustling city walls, a quieter revolution was underway. In the sprawling training grounds, under the shade of sprawling acacia trees, Askia Muhammad was reshaping his army, infusing it with the principles of strategy, standardization, and unwavering discipline. Amongst the dust and sweat of drills, he was creating an institution, a well-oiled machine that would become the backbone of his empire. Askia Muhammad's vision was nothing short of a transformation. He reorganized regiments, grouping soldiers not just by region or tribal affiliation, but by skill and experience. Captains and lieutenants were assigned clear chains of command, and regular officers were given ranks and salaries. Soldiers were drilled relentlessly. Spear practice, archery, and mounted exercises were repeated daily, turning routine movements into second nature. Cavalry units were trained to perfection, mastering the art of horsemanship and wielding their lances with deadly accuracy. The infantry stood firm, forming unbreakable ranks and unleashing volleys of arrows that could turn the tide of battle. Yet Askia's reforms went beyond mere physical training. He understood the value of knowledge. Soldiers were taught to read the terrain, to navigate the treacherous floods and unforgiving deserts, and to harness the strategic advantage of the Niger River. They learned to predict the whims of the river, using its currents and eddies to their advantage. Navigating its treacherous rapids became a skill as vital as wielding a sword, and the knowledge of seasonal patterns and local geographies became as essential as the weapons at their disposal. Discipline was strict, but fairness and clarity of demand fostered loyalty among the men. Each soldier knew exactly what was expected of him, and the consequences of failure were clearly outlined. This was not just about instilling obedience, but about forging a sense of unity and responsibility. Soldiers were no longer individuals with personal loyalties. They were cogs in a machine, each vital to the smooth functioning of the whole. Communication was standardized to signals. Messengers and flag codes ensured that orders reached even the farthest flanks, minimizing confusion in campaigns that sometimes spanned hundreds of kilometers. This attention to detail extended to logistics. Supply lines were organized, food and water caches established, and resting points planned along major routes. These measures not only kept the army fed and rested, but also equipped them to handle the unexpected. Food and water were available at regular intervals, ensuring that no soldier was caught wanting. And the designated resting points provided a sense of familiarity and comfort during long campaigns. Weapons and armor were upgraded where possible. Spears were maintained meticulously, their sharpness tested and refined. Swords were kept at the peak of their edge, gleaming testaments to the blacksmith's art. Shields, too, were polished and reinforced, serving as steadfast guardians against the enemy's steel. But it wasn't just about individual equipment. Cavalry units received special attention, not just for their horses' strength and stamina, but also for their endurance. Endurance was crucial, especially in the vast open plains where speed and endurance could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Regular vetting of horses was coupled with training regimens designed to push both horse and rider to their limits. Aski Muhammad also introduced warships along the Niger River. These vessels, often crafted from the same resilient wood as the ships of the Portuguese, patrolled the river, controlling trade and movement. They were swift, maneuverable, and surprisingly robust, able to withstand the force of colliding barges and the battering of upstream currents. Crewed by well-trained oarsmen, these warships could move quickly up and down the river, reacting swiftly to threats or disturbances. The incorporation of warships was a stroke of genius, allowing Songhai to monitor and control the river trade while simultaneously deterring potential threats from its waters. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Askia Muhammad watched with quiet pride. What he had initiated years ago was taking shape, a military force that was not just formidable, but unparalleled in West Africa. This army, born from discipline, strategy, and standardization, was poised to secure the borders, expand trade routes, and defend the empire from those who would dare challenge its might. Yet Askia Muhammad's vision extended beyond the battlefield. He saw the army as the backbone of his empire, a pillar that would support not just military campaigns, but the very fabric of his rule. And as the Songhai Empire flourished under his reign, the army's role grew, evolving into a symbol of the empire's prosperity and power. It became the shield that protected the bustling cities along the Niger River, the bulwark that safeguarded trade caravans traversing the vast savannas, and the sword that carved out new territories, enriching Songhai's coffers and expanding its reach. As the drums of war echoed once more, the Songhai army was ready. With Askia Muhammad at the helm, the empire was not just marching into battle, it was marching into a new era. The legacy of Askia Muhammad's military reforms reverberated through the ages, influencing generations of African leaders and shaping the course of West African history. His emphasis on strategy, standardization, and social mobility not only built a powerful fighting force, but also laid the groundwork for a stable, prosperous empire. Today, as we stand on the shoulders of giants like Askia Muhammad, let us remember the quiet revolution he sparked. Let his story be a reminder that true progress often begins not on the battlefield, but in the minds of those who dare to dream of a better, more organized world. Askia Muhammad's rule marked a golden age for the Songhai Empire, known for its wealth, trade networks, and military prowess. But what many may not know is how meticulously he planned and executed his campaigns to expand his empire. This expansion wasn't just about brute force. It was a calculated and deliberate process that reflected the military reforms he had instituted. He understood the value of preparation and the importance of knowing your enemy and yourself. His army didn't just march forward blindly. They went forth with knowledge, Scouts traversed scorching deserts, wind-swept savannas and river-laced banks. They returned reports that painted a detailed picture of the terrain, water sources, and even enemy positions. No hill was too high, no river too wide for these intrepid explorers. They were the eyes and ears of the Empire, feeding vital information back to Askia Muhammad. With this intelligence, Askia Muhammad made every decision with the full weight of knowledge. Every movement was calculated to keep the momentum of expansion alive without overextending his forces. It was a delicate balance, a testament to his strategic brilliance. The army moved in disciplined formations, a blend of infantry, cavalry, and when possible, river fleets. They were a well-oiled machine, each part working in harmony with the others. Picture this: thousands of soldiers traversing the vast landscapes of West Africa. They marched across heat-baked plains where the sun beat down relentlessly, forded through muddy riverbanks, and pushed deeper into dense forests where the air hung heavy with moisture. It was a test of endurance, a trial by fire that forged their resolve. Through it all, they pressed on, and when the going got tough, they drew strength from their structured training, supply organization, and the clear command hierarchy that minimized losses and kept morale high. Each step of the campaign was like a brushstroke on a vast canvas, carefully planned and executed to create a masterpiece of territorial expansion. Along the way, they engaged with the villagers, often extracting information, provisions, or safe resting points. It was a delicate dance of diplomacy and military strength. Askia Muhammad didn't just conquer, he incorporated the conquered regions into the empire through a series of treaties, tribute systems, and the careful placement of local leaders loyal to him. It was a brilliant strategy that secured borders, stabilized new territories, and ensured the continuation of the very trade that had fueled his rise to power, especially the vital trade of gold, salt, and cola nuts along the Niger River. These campaigns weren't just about territorial gain. They were also about spreading the influence of Islam and promoting scholarship. Mosques, madrasas, and administrative centers sprang up in key towns, fostering religious education and legal consistency across the empire. It was a campaign to enlighten as much as it was to conquer. There was an intertwining of the military and the spiritual, a reminder that conquest came with both material and moral obligations. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, casting dancing shadows on the faces gathered around. We rest beneath a canopy of stars, far from the hustle and bustle of the empire. The air is filled with the scent of wood smoke and roasted meat, providing a comforting contrast to the sights and sounds of the battlefield. The soldiers must have felt a similar relief when they came upon riverbanks like this, finding solace and refreshment after days on the march. The water's edge offered not just a respite for weary bodies, but also a moment to regroup and strategize, as the water reflects the moonlight, creating a silvery path through the darkness. The officers would discuss tomorrow's route or recount tales of past victories. It's a timeless scene, one that speaks to the shared human experience of those who serve, no matter the era or empire. But it's time to move on. Our journey through Askia Muhammad's campaigns isn't over yet. There's still more to see, more to understand. So let's gather closer around the fire and continue our exploration of the Songhai Empire. The Niger River was their lifeline. It ferried soldiers, provisions, and messages swiftly and efficiently, allowing for quick responses and better control of the empire's vast expanse. Its waters were a strategic asset, enabling the Songhai to dominate commerce and secure trade routes vital for the empire's prosperity. During campaigns, commanders exploited the river's potential, using river fleets to outflank rivals, protect villages, and dominate strategic points. This maneuverability gave the Songhai a significant advantage on the battlefield. The ability to move quickly along the river ensured that they could be in multiple places at once, catching opponents off guard and maintaining dominance over the waterways. Imagine the sight of the Songhai soldiers maneuvering along the river. Canoes and larger vessels laden with troops and supplies glide through the water, their paddles dipping rhythmically. On the banks, the soldiers would unload, forming battle lines ready to face any opposition. When the battle was done, the river would carry them back to their base, bringing them closer together and strengthening their bonds through shared experiences. However, the river wasn't just a tool of war. It was also a lifeline for the empire. It provided a means of communication that was faster than land-based messengers, allowing Askia Muhammad to stay informed about events across his vast domain. This real-time information flow enabled him to respond effectively to threats or opportunities as they arose. The river's bounty was immense, offering not just a way to move troops and goods, but also a source of sustenance. Fish from the river's depths provided protein-rich meals, vital for the health and energy of the soldiers. Hunting along the banks was also a common practice, providing a welcome variety to their diets. The river became more than just a strategic asset. It was a partner in their endeavors, a silent witness to their struggles and triumphs. The road to expansion was fraught with hardships. The soldiers faced long marches, scarce food, biting insects, and the relentless African sun. It was a test of endurance, a trial by fire that could break even the most steadfast spirits. But they held fast. Inspired by the promise of honor, land, and recognition, they pushed on. Their hardships became a shared bond, forging an unbreakable camaraderie among them. It wasn't just about the physical challenges. There were moments of intense danger, too. Ambushes by rival forces, skirmishes over resources, and the ever-present threat of disease loomed large. Each challenge was a stark reminder of the fragility of life, making every victory all the sweeter. Yet throughout these hardships, the soldiers kept going. They sang songs of courage, composed poems of resilience, and wove tales of their experiences that were passed down through generations. They honored their fallen comrades, ensuring that their sacrifices were not forgotten. By the end of his reign, Askia Muhammad's campaigns had reshaped the political and economic landscape of West Africa. The Songhai Empire stretched across hundreds of kilometers, controlling vital trade routes, rivers, and towns. Its influence extended from the Atlantic coast to the edge of the Sahara Desert, and its wealth was legendary. The disciplined army, shaped by years of training and hardship, had achieved more than conquest. They had created a lasting framework for governance, trade, and cultural cohesion. They had secured Songhai's place as one of the most powerful empires in West Africa. Askia Muhammad looked out over his vast empire, his heart filled with pride. His campaigns, once bold plans hatched around campfires, had become reality. The once small kingdom had blossomed into a beacon of power and prosperity. The sprawling cities, the bustling markets, the contented smiles of his subjects, all stood as testament to his vision. But his gaze wasn't just fixed on the achievements of today. He saw the potential for even greater things in the future. For Askia Muhammad, expansion wasn't just about land or resources. It was about unity. He envisioned a Songhai that transcended borders, a realm where diverse peoples came together under one banner. As the years passed, Askia Muhammad's empire continued to thrive. The strategies he'd put in place, the alliances he'd forged, and the innovations he'd introduced all contributed to a golden age in Songhai history. But, as empires often do, Songhai eventually faced challenges from within and without. Yet, the legacy of Askia Muhammad's campaigns lived on in the stories told around campfires, in the songs that echoed through the marketplaces, and in the hearts of those who dreamed of a united Songhai. His approach to expansion became a model for generations to come. A blend of strategic brilliance, cultural sensitivity, and sheer determination. And so, the story of Askia Muhammad serves as a reminder that true leadership doesn't just mean wielding power. It's about knowing when and where to use it, balancing strength with wisdom and foresight. For Askia Muhammad, expansion wasn't just a means to an end. It was a philosophy, a way of building not just an empire, but a legacy. But while the Songhai were immensely wealthy, their domain was not secure. Despite enjoying the loyalty of most subjects, Askia Muhammad knew that conquest alone could not sustain the empire. To solidify his rule, he needed discipline, structure, and innovation within the ranks. So he set about reforming the military, turning it into a professional force capable of defending the realm and quelling rebellions. Under his command, men assembled in regimented formations on the sun-baked plains of the Sahel. Golden sunlight streaming down, illuminating clouds of dust kicked up by marching feet. Askia Muhammad watched intently, a proud smile on his face, knowing that the future of the Songhai rested on the shoulders of these men. We'll start by looking at the organization of the Songhai military. Then we'll examine how Askia Muhammad trained and drilled his soldiers, and finally we'll explore how he equipped and supplied them. By understanding each of these aspects, we can appreciate the depth and breadth of Askia Muhammad's military reforms and their lasting impact on the Songhai Empire. The Songhai military was divided into several branches, including cavalry, infantry, and archers, each with its own hierarchy and chain of command. Cavalry, or horsemen, played a crucial role in reconnaissance and rapid deployment, often serving as the emperor's personal guard and shock troops. Infantry formed the backbone of the army, engaging in close combat and sieges. Archers provided ranged support, weakening opponents before direct assaults. Units were organized based on skill and loyalty, with experienced and trustworthy soldiers holding positions of authority. This approach ensured that decisions were made efficiently and effectively, fostering a sense of camaraderie and shared responsibility among the ranks. Askia Muhammad reorganized the army, replacing the old hereditary system with a merit-based one. Officers were promoted for their skill and success in campaigns, not just for noble birth. This reform incentivized excellence and loyalty, creating a corps of commanders knowledgeable in terrain, logistics, and diplomacy. This reorganization created a more cohesive and efficient fighting force, strengthening the empire's overall stability. Under Askia Muhammad's leadership, the military underwent a period of intense training and discipline. Soldiers were drilled in obedience, endurance, and strategy, learning set battle formations and tactics suitable for both open plains and riverine environments. Cavalrymen honed their skills in mounted combat, learning to ride and fight at speed. Meanwhile, infantry perfected coordinated maneuvers, ensuring seamless cooperation during assaults. Archers developed precision and accuracy, mastering bows and arrows from horseback and on foot. This rigorous training not only built a formidable fighting force, but also instilled in soldiers the values of discipline, unity, and strategic thinking, which were essential for the empire's defense and expansion. To prepare his troops for various scenarios, Askia Muhammad introduced a range of exercises and simulations. Troops were taught to respond rapidly to threats across vast distances, a crucial skill given the empire's extensive borders. Mock battles and strategic war games helped soldiers internalize formations and tactics, enhancing their ability to execute commands efficiently. Moreover, these drills fostered a sense of camaraderie and mutual trust, vital for cohesive unit cohesion. In addition to combat training, soldiers were educated in reading and interpreting battle plans, ensuring clear communication and understanding of objectives. This emphasis on strategic literacy allowed for more precise and effective military operations, contributing to the Army's reputation for efficiency and success. Training wasn't solely focused on physical prowess. It also encompassed moral discipline aligned with Islamic principles that were increasingly central to Songhai identity. Soldiers were expected to maintain high ethical standards, treating captives humanely and avoiding excessive violence. This moral code not only shaped the soldiers' behavior, but also contributed to the empire's image as a just and compassionate power. By instilling these values, Askia Muhammad forged an army that was not only well-trained and disciplined, but also committed to ethical conduct, reflecting the broader societal values of the Songhai Empire. While martial training was paramount, the Songhai military also placed importance on physical endurance. Soldiers were subjected to rigorous fitness regimens to enhance their stamina and resistance to fatigue. This was particularly crucial in the vast and arid territories of the empire where supplies could be scarce and journeys long. Endurance training involved running, jumping, and carrying heavy loads, ensuring that soldiers could withstand the physical demands of combat and extended campaigns. By emphasizing physical endurance, the military not only aimed to create robust and resilient fighters, but also to instill mental fortitude and a sense of perseverance that would serve them well in the face of adversity. Incorporating physical training into the curriculum helped soldiers stay alert and prepared for potential threats. This proactive approach allowed for quicker reaction times, improved agility, and the ability to adapt to changing battlefield conditions swiftly and effectively. Furthermore, regular exercise kept the soldiers physically fit and reduced the risk of injury during combat, enhancing their overall effectiveness as fighters. Askia Muhammad understood that a well-trained and physically fit army was more likely to succeed in battle and contribute to the defense and expansion of the Songhai Empire. Officers played a pivotal role in leading and managing military operations under Askia Muhammad's reign. They were responsible for organizing, training, and deploying troops, as well as planning and executing military strategies to ensure capable and effective leadership. The Songhai military implemented a system for promoting officers based on merit and performance. This meant that advancement was not solely dependent on noble birth or personal connections, but was earned through demonstrating skills, bravery, and strategic acumen in the field. Officers were expected to exhibit strong leadership qualities, inspiring and motivating their troops, maintaining discipline, and making sound tactical decisions. They were also tasked with fostering good relations with allies and local leaders, representing the empire's interests diplomatically when necessary. This system of merit-based promotion encouraged excellence and loyalty within the officer corps, ensuring that those in positions of authority were genuinely qualified and committed to the success of the Songhai military. Another aspect of Askia Muhammad's military reforms was the introduction of accounting procedures. Soldiers were required to keep detailed records of troop movements, supplies, and expenditures. This practice helped maintain transparency and accountability, preventing waste and misuse of resources. The meticulous record-keeping also facilitated communication between commanders, ensuring everyone was aware of the army's activities and deployments across the vast empire. Organization was another crucial element of Askia Muhammad's military reforms. He established a standardized system for deploying troops throughout the empire, assigning garrisons to strategic locations along the borders and trade routes. This ensured that the military presence was felt across the empire, providing security and stability to the populace. The strategic placement of troops also facilitated rapid response to any external threats or internal disturbances, allowing the Songhai military to protect the empire's interests effectively. Moreover, organization extended to the establishment of communication networks between military units. Messengers were tasked with relaying information and orders throughout the empire, keeping all parties informed and coordinated. This efficient system of communication was vital for the military's ability to function effectively, especially considering the vast distances involved. Askia Muhammad also emphasized the importance of equipping soldiers with appropriate weapons and armor. He recognized that the availability of quality arms and defensive gear was essential for the military's effectiveness in battle. The emperor encouraged the production and use of high-quality swords, spears, shields, and helmets, ensuring that troops were well equipped to face their adversaries. Additionally, Askia Muhammad understood the value of adopting military technologies from other cultures. He was open to incorporating new weapons and fighting techniques, recognizing that staying current with advancements was crucial for maintaining the military's superiority. Perhaps the most significant contribution to military organization under Askia Muhammad's rule was the establishment of a standing army. Unlike many contemporary African states, with armies that relied on seasonal levies or temporary alliances, Askia Muhammad maintained a permanent military force ready to defend the empire at all times. This standing army consisted of elite troops stationed in strategic locations across the empire, forming a reliable and readily deployable defense mechanism against external threats. The creation of a professional standing army marked a significant departure from previous military practices in the region and contributed greatly to the stability and longevity of the Songhai Empire. By implementing these organizational measures, Askia Muhammad transformed the Songhai military into a well-disciplined, efficient, and capable fighting force. These reforms ensured that the empire's vast territory was protected, its trade routes secured, and its people safeguarded, laying the foundation for the Songhai's lasting legacy in West African history. The Niger River flowed like a silver thread through the heart of the Songhai Empire, carrying not only water and fish, but also the lifeblood of armies, trade, and knowledge. For the Songhai warriors, mastery of the river was as vital as mastery of the spear. Fleets of wooden vessels moved silently along its winding channels, their presence both unseen and decisive, a mystery to outsiders who could not navigate its shifting currents. Early in the 15th century, the Askia dynasty emerged in the western Sudan, establishing the mighty Songhai Empire spanning what is today Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Nigeria. At its core, Askia Muhammad envisioned a vast and inclusive state drawing its strength from diverse people and cultures. But the true heart of his empire beat within the rhythmic pulse of the Niger River. Here, the mighty waterway meandered over 2,600 miles, weaving through the landscape like a giant python and connecting distant peoples through trade and cultural exchange. Yet the Niger's bounty came at a cost. Its annual floods, though vital for agriculture, were notorious for their unpredictability and power. Navigating its shifting currents demanded skill and daring, making the river both a life source and a formidable challenge. And while many empires before had strained to harness the Niger's power, none had done so with the systematic brilliance of the Songhai. When Askia Muhammad ascended to the throne, he inherited a domain that had long felt the sway of the mighty Mali Empire. Though separated by hundreds of miles, Songhai rulers had long paid tribute to their Malian overlords. But this was a relationship that Askia Muhammad desired to change. To achieve his vision, he needed allies, and he found them among the most unlikely of places, the Berbers of the Sahara. As traders traveling north from the richest cities of the Sudan encountered the bustling caravan routes of the Sahara, they brought with them tales of gold, cola nuts, and other riches from the south. This sparked the interest of the Berber chieftains, who in turn offered their skills in navigating the unforgiving desert in exchange for access to these valuable resources. Thus began a partnership that would forever alter the course of African history. In time, this alliance enabled the Songhai to exert control over vital trade routes and amass significant wealth. Soon, the Songhai found themselves not just trading partners, but active participants in the trans-Saharan trade network. Their control over key trade routes soon gave way to a new ambition, a desire for even greater wealth and power. It was during this period that the Songhai transitioned from a tributary state to an independent kingdom, laying the foundation for the mighty Songhai Empire. By 1493, Askia Muhammad had successfully expanded his domain, securing the western half of the ancient Mali Empire. But the task of governing such a vast and varied territory required more than brute force. It demanded understanding, cooperation, and, above all, organization. To meet this challenge, Askia turned to the institutions of the Mali Empire, adapting and refining them to fit the needs of his own realm. Drawing from the administrative expertise of the Malians, Askia reorganized local governance, establishing provincial administrators known as halkids, each responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining law and order, and ensuring the well-being of their respective regions. This system, though adapted, still bore the imprint of its predecessor, showcasing Askia's pragmatism and his respect for the administrative legacy of the Malians. Yet the genius of his rule lay not just in imitation, but in innovation. Escaping the shackles of tradition, he introduced accounting procedures to monitor revenue from trade, farming, and fishing. He reformed land tenure, issuing grants to loyal subjects and members of the clergy in exchange for military service and agricultural production. And he meticulously balanced the scales of justice, establishing courts to settle disputes and codifying laws to ensure fairness. These reforms, born from the fusion of indigenous practices and external influences, created a unique administrative system that contributed significantly to the stability and prosperity of the Songhai Empire. But, as we know, there was much more to the Songhai and their empire than just administration. And while we could spend many videos talking about them, we are going to focus on one aspect of Songhai society that many scholars believe was critical to their success: their navy. Askia Muhammad's empire spanned across the western Sudan and controlled vast sections of the Niger River. And so, as his empire grew, so did the size of his navy. And although little is known about their navy because the Songhai did not keep written records, we can still piece together a good portion of how it operated based on oral accounts and archaeological evidence. These river fleets were marvels of coordination. Each boat had a purpose. Some carried soldiers, others provisions, and a few acted as command vessels where officers plotted strategy. Skilled captains read the river as if it were a living map, noting seasonal floods, hidden shoals, and strong currents. This knowledge was passed orally from generation to generation, preserving the secrets of navigation and military advantage without a single written guide. This knowledge of the terrain allowed the Songhai to dominate the Niger and use it to their strategic advantage. The fleets enabled Askia Muhammad to control vast distances quickly. They transported troops to far-flung settlements, reinforced defensive positions, and patrolled key trade routes. In times of conflict, the river became a battleground, and the fleets played a pivotal role. Silent and swift, the Songhai boats glided through the river, surprising and overwhelming their enemies. Merchants, too, depended on the river, and the Songhai navy ensured that salt, gold, and kola nuts flowed uninterrupted. Control of the Niger was not only strategic, it was economic, reinforcing the empire's dominance in West Africa. The ships themselves were impressive feats of engineering and craftsmanship, built from a variety of woods, including the tough and durable African mahogany. They ranged in size from small canoes used for scouting and trade to large vessels capable of carrying hundreds of soldiers and tons of supplies. Construction of these boats was itself an art. Carpenters shaped logs into hulls, bound them with natural fibers, and sealed them with resins. Oars were balanced precisely, sails adjusted carefully, and the smallest miscalculation could spell disaster. Yet the Songhai people mastered these vessels, blending skill and ingenuity to transform a river into an artery of empire. The fleets also held a psychological edge. Enemies unfamiliar with the river's currents could be easily outmaneuvered. Sudden appearances of boats in unexpected locations could break enemy lines or force surrender. For the Songhai themselves, the fleets symbolized knowledge, power, and security, a silent strength beneath the flow of water, always ready to support the army or protect trade. Through the fleets, the empire maintained cohesion across distances. Soldiers, merchants, and officials moved with speed and certainty, while the river itself became a conduit of authority. The mystery of these fleets lay not in secrecy alone, but in the intimate knowledge of nature, logistics, and discipline that made the Niger a highway of empire. Mastering both land and river ensured that the Songhai armies could strike, defend, and sustain themselves across a vast and challenging landscape. The river fleets were more than vessels. They were lifelines, strategic tools, and symbols of an empire that combined military might with intelligence, planning, and intimate knowledge of the natural world. The Niger River was more than water flowing through the Sahel. It was the lifeblood of the Songhai Empire. Warriors, traders, and officials of all stripes relied on its winding channels, where fleets of wooden vessels silently carried men and supplies. To those outside the empire, the fleets were a mystery, gliding along the river with a precision that seemed almost impossible. Each boat served a purpose. Some carried soldiers ready for sudden deployment. Others transported provisions and weapons, while a few acted as command vessels where officers directed movements. Captains memorized every bend, shoal, and current, passing this oral knowledge to the next generation. The river itself became a living map, guiding movements and decisions, binding the empire together with invisible threads. It is important to note that unlike many of their contemporaries, who wielded iron and steel, the Songhai primarily favored wooden ships. This innovative choice was not arbitrary. Instead, it was a practical adaptation to their environment. The Songhai recognized the abundance of wood along the Niger River and its tributaries, and skillfully harnessed this resource. By constructing their vessels from local woods, they not only had easy access to shipbuilding materials, but also created ships that were lightweight yet surprisingly robust. These wooden boats were perfect for navigating the shallow waters of the Niger Delta and its numerous tributaries. Their maneuverability allowed for swift movements and made them ideal for both transportation and military operations. But how did the Songhai people propel their boats and navigate the vast stretches of the Niger River? The answer lies in the ingenious system of oars. Each vessel was equipped with a number of oars, allowing for propulsion without the need for sails. This system had several advantages. First, oars provided greater control over the speed and direction of the boats, enabling the crew to navigate the river with precision. Second, they allowed for silent movement, which was particularly useful for military operations or when transporting valuable goods. The absence of noisy sails meant that the boats could glide through the water undetected, making them perfect for espionage or surprise attacks. The oarsmen, typically slaves or lower-ranking members of society, were vital to the success of any voyage. They worked tirelessly, their rhythmic strokes propelling the boats forward day and night. The skill and endurance of the oarsmen were crucial, especially during long journeys or battles. Their ability to maintain a steady pace determined the efficiency and effectiveness of the river fleet. Overall, the combination of wooden ships and oars proved to be a successful strategy for the Songhai, enabling them to dominate the Niger River and harness its power for their empire. Travel along the Niger demanded skill and endurance. Sudden storms could overturn boats. Hidden sandbanks threatened the unwary, yet the fleets allowed rapid responses to rebellion, invasion, or threats to trade routes. Merchants depended on these waterways, and the river fleets ensured the steady flow of salt, gold, cola, nuts, and other goods, safeguarded by disciplined oarsmen and vigilant soldiers. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Imagine the soft rhythm of oars on water, the gentle lapping of the river, and the quiet vigilance of warriors keeping watch over the Empire's lifeline. The flickering flames dance before us as we share stories of bravery, hardship, and the indomitable spirit of the Songhai people. As the night deepens, we listen intently to tales of daring voyages and epic battles fought on the vast expanse of the Niger River. We learn about the cunning strategies employed by the Songhai captains and the fierce resistance they faced from rival kingdoms and nomadic invaders. But our journey doesn't end there. We also hear about the peaceful aspects of river life, the bustling markets, the vibrant trade, and the cultural exchanges that took place along the Niger's banks. We imagine the sights, sounds, and smells of everyday life in a Songhai port city, where merchants from distant lands gathered to buy and sell their wares. As the evening progresses, the conversation turns to the challenges of life on the river, the treacherous currents, the risk of piracy, and the constant threat of war. We learn about the courage it took to navigate the dangerous waters and the sacrifices made by the sailors and soldiers who patrolled the river. As the night draws to a close, we reflect on the importance of the Niger River to the Songhai Empire. It was not just a source of transportation and trade, but a lifeline that connected the empire from north to south. We marvel at the ingenuity of the Songhai people who developed such advanced shipbuilding techniques and navigation skills. And we pay tribute to the bravery of those who sailed and fought on its waters. As we drift off to sleep under the canopy of stars, we are filled with admiration for the Songhai Empire and their mastery of the Niger River. Their story is a reminder of the power of human ingenuity, the importance of water in shaping civilizations, and the legacy of one of Africa's greatest empires. Beyond transport, the fleets were strategic tools. Commanders could demonstrate power without bloodshed, positioning forces where they would influence towns or deter rivals. Diplomatic missions traveled safely aboard these boats, carrying gifts, treaties, and messages. The river was both shield and sword, an instrument of strategy intertwined with daily life. Over the years, as the vast Songhai Empire flourished, the Niger River witnessed the rise and fall of countless rulers. Each monarch left his mark on the river fleets, some expanding them, others neglecting them. But through it all, the river endured, steadfastly carrying on its vital role in the empire's survival. Then came Askja, the warrior king known for his military campaigns and territorial expansion. Recognizing the strategic value of the river fleets, Askja invested heavily in their upkeep and modernization. He introduced new ship designs, improved navigation techniques, and implemented rigorous training programs for the crews. Under his reign, the river fleets became a formidable force, capable of projecting Songhai power far beyond its borders. But the story of the Niger River fleets is not just about war and conquest. It is also about trade, exploration, and diplomacy. During the height of the trans-Saharan trade, the river was a vital artery for the exchange of goods between the empires of Songhai, Ghana, and Mali. The fleets carried valuable commodities such as gold, salt, and ivory, connecting distant markets and fueling the growth of prosperous trading centers along the river's course. Furthermore, the Niger River fleets played a crucial role in maintaining the integrity of the Songhai Empire. When rival kingdoms threatened the empire's borders or ambitious warlords sought to disrupt the flow of trade, the fleets were there to defend and protect. The disciplined oarsmen and sailors, along with the strategic brilliance of Songhai commanders, ensured the safety of the river, safeguarding the very essence of the empire's prosperity and unity. In addition to their military and economic importance, the river fleets also served as a means of cultural exchange and diplomatic missions. The Songhai rulers often sent embassies on the river, carrying gifts and messages to their allies and rivals alike. These diplomatic missions not only fostered goodwill and maintained alliances, but also showcased the grandeur and sophistication of the Songhai civilization to the wider world. But, as with all great empires, the Songhai dynasty eventually declined, succumbing to internal strife and external pressures. However, the legacy of their river fleets continued to resonate along the Niger long after the empire's demise. The skills and knowledge acquired during the Songhai era endured, influencing subsequent civilizations that rose along the riverbanks. Today, as we gaze upon the mighty Niger River, it is hard to fathom the pivotal role it played in shaping the course of African history. The Songhai Empire's mastery of the river remains a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and the enduring impact of one of Africa's most fascinating civilizations. The Niger River is not just a body of water, it is a living chronicle of the past, whispering tales of ancient empires, intrepid explorers, and the vibrant cultures that have thrived along its banks. And as we listen to these whispers, we are reminded of the rich tapestry of African history and the profound legacy of the Songhai people. The sun began its slow ascent, chasing away the remnants of night and painting the sky with hues of rose and gold. Along the banks of the Niger River, the Songhai people stirred from their slumber, their movements as precise and harmonious as the gears of a well-oiled machine. For these proud warriors and merchants, life was deeply entwined with the rhythms of the river, their days punctuated by the low hum of oars, the soft slap of water against wooden hulls, and the quiet murmur of warriors preparing for the day. The river's gentle lapping against the shore was not merely a natural sound, but a conductor's baton orchestrating the tempo of their lives. Soldiers and sailors alike, men who navigated the treacherous waters of the Niger with skill and bravery, understood that the river's moods could shift as quickly as the desert winds. One moment it would be placid and inviting, the next thundering and unforgiving. To thrive along the Niger, one had to live in harmony with its cycles, respecting its power while harnessing its potential. The river was their teacher, the craftsman of their destiny. Their sleek and sturdy warboats, crafted from the wood of giant African mahogany trees, were symbols of this harmonious relationship. These vessels were not just means of transport, but extensions of the sailors' bodies, responding instinctively to their touch and commands. The art of navigating the river was as much a part of their training as wielding a sword or casting a net. They learned to read the currents, judge distances, and anticipate the river's seasonal floods, adapting their tactics and strategies to the ever-changing conditions. Meals were cooked on small fires along the riverbanks, the air filled with the aroma of grilled fish and roasted meats. Warriors sat in close-knit groups, sharing stories of past victories and strategizing for future campaigns. Their movements were not just purposeful, they were a testament to their deep connection with the river. Even the smallest detail, like the way they repaired their boats with patient skill, spoke volumes about their character, a reflection of the resilience and adaptability that had become their hallmark. It wasn't just the soldiers who relied on the river's bounty. Merchants, too, plied its waters, transporting precious cargo of salt, gold, cloth, and kola nuts between towns. Their flat-bottomed boats, laden with goods, moved in rhythmic harmony with the current, carrying not just commodities, but the lifeblood of trade. And always by their side were the soldiers, their presence a reassuring constant as they patrolled alongside the merchant fleets, ensuring safe passage along the treacherous waterways. The safety of the river depended on maintaining order. Any disruption could lead to chaos, putting lives and livelihoods at risk. The soldiers responsible for maintaining this order were not just enforcers. They were mediators, problem solvers, and protectors, ready to confront any threat that dared disrupt the river's flow. Their duties ranged from resolving disputes among the traders to defending the river communities from external threats. They were the guardians of the river's tranquility, ensuring that the wheels of trade and commerce kept turning smoothly. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the river bustled with activity. Groups of fishermen cast their nets into the water, their movements practiced and efficient. The catch of the day glistened in the sunlight, a silver flash against the dark water. Along the banks, women gathered, their voices ringing with laughter and chatter as they unloaded baskets brimming with fresh produce. The sight of children playing near the boats, their joy echoing across the water, was a constant reminder of the river's life-giving essence. It was a source of sustenance, recreation, and life itself. When the fleets arrived, villages along the river flourished. Markets swelled with goods from distant lands, and visitors carried news of faraway places. The familiar faces of returning residents were a welcome sight, bringing with them tales of adventure and new discoveries. Every interaction along the river was a testament to the interconnectedness of their world. The river was a living artery, pulsating with the energy of 1,000 stories. As the day wore on, the river's tranquility was occasionally broken by the rhythmic calls of boatmen guiding their vessels. Through the maze of waterways, these men were not just laborers, they were the river's storytellers, their voices carrying tales of distant lands and bustling markets. Their songs echoed across the water, a harmonious blend of work and art, a celebration of their unique way of life. But the river's bounty was not just material. It was also a source of cultural richness. Around evening campfires, elders shared ancient tales passed down through generations, stories that wove together history, mythology, and lessons for the future. Theirs was a society that thrived on the exchange of knowledge as much as they did on trade. Each campfire became a stage where history came alive, where young and old gathered to learn and to remember. Under the cloak of night, the river took on a different ambience, a time for rest, reflection, and storytelling. As the last rays of sunlight faded, the river's surface turned into a mirror, reflecting the fiery hues of the sky. The flickering light of lanterns and campfires danced on the water, creating an enchanting play of shadows and light. This was a time for quiet contemplation, for sharing stories and forging bonds that would endure the test of time. In the stillness of the night, the river seemed to hum with 1,000 unspoken stories. The soft lapping of water against the shore was a lullaby that cradled the weary travelers, while the rustling of leaves overhead created a soothing melody that whispered tales of ages past. It was during these quiet moments that the true spirit of the river came to life. A sense of continuity, of life ebbing and flowing like the tides. And, as the stars twinkled above, casting their celestial glow on the river's surface, there was a feeling of being part of something larger, of being connected to the very essence of the universe. In the quiet of the night, the river revealed its soul. It was a time for dreams, for hope and for renewal. A time when the worries of the day gave way to the promise of a new dawn. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars, imagining the quiet life on the banks of the Niger. Smoke rising from cooking fires, oars resting, and lanterns glowing softly against the night. The Songhai Empire, nestled in the heart of West Africa, thrived due to its intimate relationship with the mighty Niger River. More than just a geographical feature, the Niger was the lifeblood of the empire, shaping not just its destiny, but also the very essence of its people. For the Songhai, life was a continuous dance with the river's rhythms. From the earliest hours of dawn till dusk, their days were measured by the river's ebb and flow. Their sleek war canoes, symbols of their prowess, were extensions of themselves, moving as per their will and responding to their commands. The river's moods, whether placid or turbulent, were mirrored in their own spirits, adapting and conquering all challenges that came their way. The Songhai weren't just conquerors of the land. They were masters of the waters, too. Their sailors and soldiers alike were experts in navigation, reading the currents, judging distances, and anticipating the river's whims. This intimate knowledge allowed them to not only survive, but thrive in one of the harshest and most unforgiving environments imaginable. The river's bounty was celebrated with festivals, with markets overflowing with the day's catch or the week's trade. These gatherings weren't just economic events. They were social and cultural hubs, where news from distant lands mingled with the banter of merchants and the laughter of children. It was here, amidst the vibrant tapestry of life, that the Songhai truly flourished. Yet they knew the river's temper, its fury during floods, or its deceptiveness in calm waters. They respected its power, understanding that their very survival depended on it. This coexistence wasn't just about practicality. It was about a deep connection, a mutual respect, and a shared destiny. As the sun dipped below the horizon each day, the river transformed into a canvas of colors, mirroring the sky's hues and whispering tales of the day gone by. This nightly spectacle was more than just a pretty sight. It was a reminder of the impermanence of things, a call to make the most of the fleeting moments of joy and beauty that life offered. To the Songhai, the river was more than just a geographical feature. It was a teacher, a provider, a companion, and a muse. Its waters bore witness to their joys and sorrows, their triumphs and struggles, becoming the silent partner of their lives. Within the bustling cities of the Songhai Empire, most famously Gao, stood palaces that reflected both political might and cultural refinement. These were not palaces in the European sense of towering marble columns, but vast compounds built of sun-dried mud brick, plastered smooth and decorated with geometric patterns. Their walls rose above the city, commanding respect and awe from travelers who entered through grand gates. Inside, the courtyards hummed with activity. Officials carried messages, guards in polished armor stood at attention, and attendants prepared chambers for the day's ceremonies. The palace was not only a home for rulers, but the nerve center of empire. Here, decisions of war and peace were made, alliances forged, and trade agreements sealed. Every visitor, from noble emissaries to humble petitioners, understood they were stepping into a space where history was written. And yet, amidst all this splendor, there was a simplicity to life at the court. Woven mats on the ground defined spaces rather than carved stone floors. Homes were built around courtyards in the same manner as the villages that dotted the empire, creating a sense of continuity between ruler and ruled. Even the grand hall of audiences was designed for comfort. Though it could accommodate thousands, the roofed hall was cooled by the natural ventilation of high windows set behind screens, allowing for a gentle breeze that fluttered the silk banners decorating the pillars. When the Askia Mohammed or one of his successors arrived to take his throne, it was not in a gilded carriage or on a golden howdah, but on an unadorned chair carried by 8 men. This was not to diminish the importance of the occasion, but to underscore a key tenet of Songhai philosophy, the transience of worldly things, including power. For Askia and his courtiers, the greatest wealth lay in knowledge, lineage, and piety. And so, while their material possessions might change hands, these core aspects of their identity remained constant. The architecture itself mirrored the empire's balance between tradition and innovation. Roofed halls were cooled by the natural ventilation of high windows, and chambers were arranged to separate public audiences from private quarters. At night, lanterns of oil lit the passageways, casting shadows that flickered along the walls, while musicians played softly to accompany feasts and diplomatic banquets. Food at the court was abundant. Millet, rice, and fish from the river, seasoned with spices carried along the Saharan trade routes. Guests dined in the presence of the ruler, each gesture measured, each word carefully chosen. To be invited to such a meal was to share in the prestige of Songhai power. Now, imagine yourself as a visitor to one of these magnificent courts. Perhaps an envoy from a neighboring kingdom or a merchant with goods to trade. You've traveled for weeks, following the winding caravan trails across the savannas and through bustling markets, until finally the great walls of Gao appear on the horizon. As you approach the city, anticipation builds. What will this fabled capital be like? How will the Songhai rulers welcome you? What wonders and challenges await? You enter through the city gate and find yourself in a world of vibrant activity. Stalls overflow with colorful fabrics, exotic spices, and handcrafted goods from distant lands. Merchants call out the virtues of their wares, while curious onlookers haggle over prices. It's a scene of controlled chaos, much like the great marketplaces of Cairo or Timbuktu. But within this lively hub lies a deeper order, a testament to the Songhai's commitment to justice and prosperity. The palace, however, is where the true heart of the empire beats. And as you approach its vast compound, you can't help but feel a sense of awe. The mud brick walls, though seemingly simple, rise majestically, adorned with intricate geometric carvings that seem to shift and shimmer in the sunlight. It's a reminder of the empire's deep connection to its past, yet also its embrace of innovation and trade. As you are ushered through the grand gates and into the inner courtyard, the cacophony of the city fades away. Here, tranquility reigns, broken only by the murmur of officials going about their important tasks. The air is filled with the scent of jasmine and orange blossom, carried on a gentle breeze that rustles through the palm trees lining the courtyard. It's a place of intense focus, where every step echoes with the weight of history. Officials hurry to and fro, delivering messages that could shape the fate of kingdoms. Guards stand in silent vigil, their polished armor reflecting the sun's rays like 1,000 burning embers. Each of them is acutely aware that they are the first line of defense, not just for the palace, but for the entire empire. At the center of this maelstrom of activity are the chambers of Askir Muhammad, the 12th Askir, who ascended to the throne in 1588 after the abdication of his father, Askir Ishak II. Here, the pulse of the empire quickens. Within these four walls are made decisions that affect not just the course of the empire, but the very balance of power across the region. Imagine sitting in one of these chambers, the cool mud brick walls a stark contrast to the searing heat outside. In the dim lamplight, the faint scent of incense mingling with the musk of leather. The Askir sits cross-legged on a woven mat, his face etched with the wisdom of years spent in contemplation and governance. His court, a mix of scholars, advisors, and diplomats, are gathered close, their voices hushed but intense as they discuss matters of trade, diplomacy, and defense. Suddenly, a messenger bursts through the entrance, his face flushed and eyes wide with urgency. He delivers a message that will test the Askir's resolve, a challenge from a neighboring king, a plea for aid from a distant vassal, or perhaps news of an impending invasion. The atmosphere in the chamber shifts, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on the shoulders of the Askir outside. The sounds of the city carry on the wind, a constant reminder of the people whose lives are intertwined with the decisions being made within these four walls. The Askir takes a deep breath, his gaze unwavering as he considers the options. His advisors, sensing the gravity of the situation, fall silent, giving him their full attention. In this moment, the fate of the empire hangs in the balance, resting on the decisions of a single ruler and his trusted advisors. How will the Askir respond to this challenge? Will he stand firm against the invaders, reach out to forge an alliance, or seek a peaceful resolution? Only time will tell. These palaces were more than residences. They were symbols of stability, order, and the empire's reach. As caravans arrived with gold, salt, books, and textiles, the palace walls absorbed the wealth and prestige of the empire, turning Gao into a beacon of West African prosperity. The court was also a stage for ceremony. The arrival of Askir Muhammad or his successors would be greeted with drums, horns, and chants. Subjects prostrated themselves, while foreign visitors stood in awe of the grandeur. Every performance reinforced authority, making clear that the empire's strength came not only from armies and fleets, but from a ruler's ability to embody dignity, wisdom, and divine favor. To be a witness of such pageantry was to understand the true measure of Songhai power. Imagine standing before the palace as the procession approaches, the rhythmic pounding of drums reverberating through your chest, the air thick with anticipation. Suddenly, a trumpet blares, announcing the arrival of the emperor. You turn toward the sound and see him emerging from the palace gates astride a magnificent horse, his royal robes flowing in the wind, his head crowned with a golden ornament. As he rides past, his eyes, though hidden behind a veil, seem to bore into you, acknowledging your presence in the grand hierarchy of the empire. Other members of the royal court follow in a procession that seems endless, each person playing their part in reinforcing the majesty of the moment. There's the Grand Vizier, his face lined with wisdom, followed by ministers, nobles, and generals, all contributing to the spectacle. This is more than just a display of power. It's a ritual that binds subject to ruler, reminding all present of their shared identity and purpose. To have been summoned to this event is an honor, a recognition that you, too, are part of the greater Songhai community. Songhai's vast realm stretched like a blanket over the arid lands of West Africa, encompassing diverse people, cultures, and beliefs under its sway. Yet amidst the sweeping landscapes of dunes and savannas, there existed a microcosm of intellectual vibrancy and spiritual discourse. The Songhai court, far from being just a seat of military command or a stage for royal ceremony, the court of Gao was also a sanctuary for scholars, scribes, and diplomats. Here, the desert sands whispered tales of not just conquest and trade, but also of theological debates and the peaceful exchange of ideas. Under the reign of Askia Muhammad, the 15th century monarch who ushered Songhai into its golden age, Islamic law and scholarship became deeply interwoven into the fabric of the empire's governance. It was during his rule that the court of Gao, Songhai's capital, evolved into a hub of intellectual activity. Every Friday, after the midday prayer, the atmosphere in Gao would shift from the bustle of trade and administration to the hush of theological discourse. The air within the palace walls was thick with the scent of burning incense, as scholars known as Qadis gathered before the ruler, offering advice on matters of faith and governance. Their decisions, rooted in the teachings of the Quran, the Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad's sayings, and centuries of Islamic legal scholarship, provided a template for justice and conduct across the vast empire. These gatherings were not just about dispensing religious guidance, they were a blend of politics and piety, where every ruling had both earthly and otherworldly ramifications. The Qadis, much like judges in modern courts, weighed the complexities of each case, ensuring that justice was served according to the tenets of Islamic law. But their task was more intricate given the vastness of the empire and the diversity of its people. Songhai's domain wasn't just a collection of lands, it was a mosaic of cultures, each with its own customs and traditions. This meant that the Qadis often had to navigate a labyrinth of local practices, trying to reconcile them with the overarching Islamic principles. To understand this dynamic, one must delve into the very heart of Songhai society, the Timbuktu. In the bustling markets and grand mosques of this fabled city, Islam had taken root and flourished. Over the years, it had intertwined with local beliefs, creating a unique cultural tapestry. In the famed Sankha University, one of the oldest and largest in the Islamic world, scholars from across the empire congregated. They discussed theology, law, and philosophy, their voices echoing the diversity of thought that characterized Songhai's intellectual landscape. These men of letters weren't confined to books. They were active participants in the affairs of the state. When disputes arose in distant corners of the empire, they were often called upon to provide counsel. Their presence at the court ensured that decisions were made, not just by warriors or monarchs, but also by those who understood the nuances of faith and tradition. One might imagine these gatherings as a kind of intellectual jousting match. Scholars would stand before the ruler, their arguments as weapons. They'd cite verses from the Quran, weave in local customs and precedents, and finally arrive at a consensus. This consensus, when backed by the authority of the court, became the guiding light for the empire's subjects, shaping their daily lives from the bustling markets of Timbuktu to the remote villages along the Niger River. However, Songhai's geographical expanse didn't just expose it to internal complexities. It also placed the empire at the crossroads of international diplomacy. The Sahara, with its endless dunes, was also a highway for merchants and messengers. From the bustling cities of Morocco to the house estates in the interior, to the Tuareg confederations on the edge of the desert, envoys came bearing gifts and letters of intent. In this context, the court of Gao transformed itself into a diplomatic arena. Within its courtyards, ambassadors from distant lands negotiated not just for trade deals or territorial claims, but also for understanding and alliance. The arrival of a delegation was a spectacle in itself. Envoys from Morocco, resplendent in their flowing robes and turbans, would present exquisite gifts, perhaps a pile of salt blocks harvested from the depths of the earth, or bolts of fine cloth woven with intricate patterns. In return, they would receive Songhai's renowned gold, perhaps in the form of intricate ingots or sparkling jewelry. These exchanges weren't just material transactions. They were symbolic representations of the bonds being forged or reaffirmed between nations. Yet these diplomatic missions weren't limited to the material realm. They also carried with them letters, not sealed with wax, but sealed with the prestige and authority of the sender's crown. These letters, written in elegant Arabic calligraphy, contained messages of intent, proposals for cooperation, or even demands. The Songhai ruler, seated on his elaborately carved throne, would read these missives, his gaze steady, his bearing regal. His response would be carefully worded, each phrase carrying the weight of an empire. And this communication wasn't a one-way street. Songhai too had its network of messengers who traveled across the Sahara, their camels laden with letters and gifts. In the midst of all this activity, a group of scribes would be diligently recording each word, each gift, each agreement in painstaking detail. Their tools weren't laptops or smartphones, but quills and scrolls. Their words forming an archive of diplomacy that would help future generations navigate the complexities of statecraft and international relations. Imagine sitting in the courtyard of Gao's palace, surrounded by the murmur of voices in many tongues, the soft scratching of quills on parchment, and the gentle lapping of water from a nearby fountain. You watch as a delegation from Morocco presents their gifts to the Songhai ruler. The scene is charged with the weight of history, knowing that every word spoken, every gift exchanged, is a building block of empires and a testament to the enduring legacy of diplomacy. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the courtyard, you realize that this isn't just a moment in time, but a moment in history. The court of Gao isn't just a place, it's a crucible where faith, scholarship and diplomacy are forged into the very fabric of an empire. It's a place where the echoes of Islamic law and the wisdom of generations of scholars shape the course of a kingdom. It's a place where the sands of the Sahara whisper tales of empires and the stars above bear witness to the timeless pursuit of knowledge and understanding. In the heart of Gao and later Timbuktu, power was never the voice of a single man. Askia Muhammad and his successors leaned on councils of scholars, judges, and advisors who brought wisdom from across the Islamic world. These gatherings were not only political, they were deeply textual. Decisions were debated with reference to Quranic law, Maliki jurisprudence, and the writings of scholars who had traveled from Cairo, Fez, and even Andalusia. Authority came not from the sword alone, but from the weight of written words. Now, let's see how this works out for our poor little protagonist. We find him in a candlelit chamber of a Songhai palace. Around low wooden tables sit men of religion and men of the state, all dressed in flowing robes. Some are white with gold trim, others are forest green. It is a hot night, and a ceiling fan, powered by a water wheel and operated by a slave, does its best to keep the air moving. Open manuscripts rest on the tables, some filled with elegant copper calligraphy, others with neat rows of black letters on crisp white pages. Inkpots, brushes, and quills are set out alongside silver goblets and trays of dried fruit. At one end of the room sits an elaborate throne, inlaid with ivory and gold. But tonight it is empty. The ruler has left the decision-making to his advisors. One of the men leans forward, tracing a passage with his finger. He looks up, meeting the eyes of the man opposite him. "You forget," he says, "that what we do must accord with the law of the Prophet. The Quran tells us clearly that the life of a believer should be like this." He gestures to the book in his hands. "How can we allow the Sultan to break this law when it is our duty to uphold it?" His companion nods slowly. "I hear your words, and I am convinced. Let us go then and tell the Sultan that his wish is contrary to the divine law." Their discussion is being recorded by a young scribe. With a nib dipped in black ink, he fills out another page of the minutes of the Ulama Assembly. Every decision made, every debate held, will be recorded here in painstaking detail, so that all may know the wisdom of the council. While Askia is revered as a warrior king, his heirs would earn their power and prosperity through different means. They built vast libraries, sponsoring the copying of manuscripts and welcoming scholars from across the Islamic world. But how did they balance such ancient traditions with their newfound wealth? And why did their empire last for generations after the death of its legendary founder? The answer to both questions lies in this room, where every Friday afternoon, members of the royal court gather to consult with religious scholars. Their discussions touch on every aspect of public life, from trade disputes to land rights to the conduct of war. And no one is exempt from their authority, not even the Sultan. Members of the assembly, known as the Alama, are appointed by the Sultan, but they serve at the pleasure of the law. They are drawn from among the most learned men in the empire, men who have studied the Quran, the Hadith, and the writings of Muslim jurists. When the Sultan proposes a new law or a new policy, it is the Alama's duty to advise him according to the principles of Islamic law. If the law is unclear, they may vote on the matter, but ultimately it is their understanding of the Quran and their commitment to the Sharia that guides their decision-making. This assembly has the power to overturn the Sultan's commands. If they are deemed unjust or contrary to the teachings of Islam, such a move is unprecedented in the history of the medieval world. Kings and queens may have claimed to rule by divine right, but ultimate power still rested with them. Here in Gao, however, the Sultan's word is not law. It is the scholars who hold that power. Consider the case of a subject who approaches the Sultan to complain about an unfair tax. The Sultan rules in favor of the tax collector. But when the case comes before the assembly, the ulama consider it unjust. They overrule the Sultan and issue a decree that the tax be refunded. So far, so good. What happens, though, when the Sultan himself seeks to contravene the law? We have already seen examples of this in Askia's own lifetime. He came under the sway of the Muslim jurist and preacher Baba Mahmud, who taught him the fundamentals of the Islamic faith. When Askia fell ill, he called for Baba Mahmud to anoint him and pray over him for a swift recovery. Upon his return to health, the Askia rewarded his healer by granting him the governorship of a province, despite the fact that it was already occupied by Askia's brother, Horan. This caused tension between the two men and eventually led to a full-blown revolt by Horan, who sought to depose his brother and claim the throne for himself. As he fled to Morocco, Askia was forced to confront the consequences of his actions. He had violated the laws of succession by giving away his brother's territory. Now he was paying the price. But as he consolidated his power once again, Askia Muhammad turned to the very institution that had been created to keep him in check. He appointed a council of ulama to govern in his name, drawing members from the leading families of the region and giving them sweeping powers to dispense justice. He also commissioned the building of mosques, schools, and libraries across his empire, helping to spread the influence of Islam and the power of the written word. His successor, Askia Ishak II, would carry on this tradition, building one of the largest libraries in the known world. But even he would face opposition from the very scholars he had appointed to run his empire. When he died in 1528, a succession crisis threatened to engulf the kingdom. His widow, Lala Fansa, attempted to place her favorite son on the throne. But the ulama opposed the move, believing that he was too young and inexperienced to rule. Eventually, his cousin, Askia Musa, was selected as the new sultan, marking the beginning of a new dynasty. But the ulama continued to hold the balance of power. This delicate balance between spiritual and temporal authority continued for decades. The scholars were not afraid to speak truth to power, and the sultans knew that their legitimacy depended on the goodwill of the ulama. But how did this system work in practice? How did the ulama keep the sultans in check without resorting to violence? The answer lies in the nature of their authority. The ulama were not a monolithic bloc. They represented a variety of schools of thought within Islam, each with its own interpretation of the law. This diversity of opinion actually strengthened their collective power, as it forced them to debate and refine their arguments before reaching a consensus. Moreover, they were not simply religious leaders. They were also jurists, historians, and diplomats. They were men of letters, yes, but they were also men of action. Take, for example, the question of slavery. Slavery was legal in many parts of the Muslim world, but the Songhai Sultanate took steps to limit its worst abuses. Under Askia Muhammad, slaves were forbidden to be bought or sold in the markets of Gao. Instead, slaves could only be transferred as gifts. This may seem like a small concession, but it was a significant step towards recognizing the humanity of those held in bondage. It also demonstrates the practical ways in which the ulama could exercise their authority. They did not rely solely on pronouncements from on high. They worked within the existing system to make incremental improvements. But perhaps the greatest testament to the power of the written word is the very survival of the Songhai Empire. Despite its wealth and its size, the Songhai faced constant threats from neighboring kingdoms and from internal factions seeking to seize the throne. Yet it endured for nearly a century, longer than any of the empires that surrounded it. This was not because the Songhai army was invincible, or because their rulers were immune to the temptations of power. It was because the Songhai understood that true authority comes not from the sword alone, but from the weight of ideas. By embracing scholarship and the pursuit of knowledge, they created a system that allowed their empire to thrive long after their armies were gone. So the next time you pick up a book, remember that you are holding more than just paper and ink. You are holding the legacy of generations of scholars who risked everything to preserve the past so that we might learn from it today. And that brings us to the end of our journey through Songhai. I hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into a world that often goes unnoticed in the grand sweep of history. But before we part ways, I want to ask you to do something very important. Take a moment to show your support by liking and sharing this video. It is a small gesture that makes a big difference, helping us to reach more people and keep the stories coming. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more adventures in history. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and until next time, keep asking questions. The answers are out there waiting to be discovered. The fire beneath the baobab is low now. The embers glow faintly like the last sparks of a warrior's campfire after a long march, and so we step back, gently, from the world of the Songhai Empire. We have walked with the warriors who carried iron swords across burning plains, who endured the heat, hunger, and endless campaigns that carved an empire into Africa's heart. We saw how Askia Muhammad reshaped that restless army into something disciplined and vast, one of the greatest military machines the continent had ever known. And then we drifted to the waters where fleets of canoes, silent, strong, and swift, gave Songhai dominion over the Niger River, the empire's lifeline. Finally, we sat inside the palaces of Gao and Timbuktu, among scholars, scribes, and jurists, watching as ink and parchment reigned beside the emperor. We saw that power in Songhai was not only the clang of steel, but also the quiet authority of texts, councils, and ideas. The empire was balanced between sword and scroll, between those who marched and those who wrote. What remains now is silence. The warriors are gone, their armor rusted, their spears broken, yet the memory of their struggle, their discipline, and their service remains, etched into the soil of Mali, Niger, and Nigeria, whispered through the manuscripts of Timbuktu, and remembered by history. As you rest beneath this sky, let the clamor of armies fade into the hum of the night. Imagine the quiet ripple of a river fleet passing in the dark, or the murmur of scholars turning pages by lamplight. You are safe here, at the close of another story, carried gently by history's tide. We've followed the mighty armies of the Songhai across a blazing Mali, a scorching Sahara, and through 1,000 battles. But it is time for us to turn back from the flickering flames of their campfires, from the clash of their sabers, and from the proud faces of their emperors. Let us return to the riverbank, where our journey began, to the great bend of the Niger, where the legendary canoes of the Songhai first carried us into the bustling port of Gao. Here we watched merchants from across the known world unload their wares, gold from the south, salt from the depths of the desert, and scholars from the Middle East carrying the weight of ancient knowledge on their shoulders. The river flowed on, connecting distant empires and carrying the seeds of new ideas to fertile ground. And we knew then that Songhai was more than just a collection of tribes bound by blood and war. It was a place where the whispers of the wind carried tales of distant lands, where the riverbank was a crossroads of cultures, and where the very air crackled with the energy of a people reaching for the stars. And yet, even empires built on trade and scholarship, on the backs of men and women who dared to dream beyond the horizon, must come to an end. The Songhai, too, would face the relentless march of time, the shifting sands of fortune, and the echoes of past mistakes. But their story, like the river that cradled their birth, would continue to flow, shaping the lands and people around it long after the last ember of their fire had faded into the night. As the fire dwindles, so does the light of day. And with it, the sounds of the marketplace begin their slow fade into the gathering dusk. The air, thick with the scent of wood smoke and roasted meats, grows still. The rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer gives way to the chirping of crickets, and above it all, the constant murmur of the Niger River persists, a timeless lullaby to a day's end. The warriors, weary from their campaigns, now trade their weapons for cola, nuts, and sweet sugarcane, sharing stories of valor and daring deeds around the fire. Their laughter echoes with the joy of camaraderie, each tale adding another layer to their shared legacy, forging bonds of brotherhood that will endure long after the flames die down. But as the night deepens, a hush falls over the camp. One by one, the warriors drift off to sleep, their bodies heavy with the day's heat and the weight of their responsibilities. The fire, now a faint glow in the darkness, reflects in their closed eyes, each man lost in dreams of home, of hearth, and of glory yet to come.